Ma'am, you need to stop resisting and get on the ground.
I am not resisting. I am standing here with my hands fully visible.
You're being aggressive. Get down, now.
Officer, you are making a serious mistake. I am a sitting federal judge.
I don't care who you say you are. On the ground.
My hands are empty. I am
Your
not
body
a threat.
camera is recording.
Michael Reardon had no idea that the woman standing next to the sleek, dark gray Lexus was no ordinary shopper. Naomi Whitaker had spent over 21 years on the federal bench, presiding over cases that shaped legal precedent in civil rights, police misconduct, and constitutional law. She had sent corrupt officers to prison, written influential opinions that became law in 3 states, and navigated the most complex and high-stakes litigation imaginable. And now, unknowingly to Reardon, she was about to become the central figure in a case that would consume his career, cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars, and ignite national discussion about police accountability and racial profiling. The mall's security cameras captured every angle. Reardon's body camera was recording. Dash cameras from 2 nearby patrol vehicles also recorded the unfolding incident. Several shoppers had paused to watch, their phones raised to preserve the moment from multiple perspectives. Whitaker's composure was remarkable. She did not panic, cry, or beg. She had faced far greater pressures in courtrooms across the country, and she understood precisely how to manage danger, assert rights, and remain calm under scrutiny. Her eyes remained on Reardon, unblinking, her posture deliberate, measured, unyielding. Take a moment, comment below, sharing where you're watching from, your city, state, or country. And if you believe in holding authority accountable, subscribe now. This story will challenge your assumptions and show why vigilance and knowledge of your rights are crucial. Naomi Whitaker did not seek special treatment. At 54, she had spent nearly 2 decades as a United States District Judge in the Western District of California. Her courtroom was known for fairness, diligence, and an unyielding commitment to justice. She had handled complex death penalty cases, massive organized crime prosecutions, and intricate civil rights litigation. Prosecutors and defense attorneys alike respected her for her rigorous standards, meticulous attention to detail, and impartiality. That Saturday afternoon had begun like any other. She drove to Coronado Heights, a high-end outdoor shopping plaza, to purchase groceries, household items, and a gift for her niece's birthday. She parked her Lexus near the entrance and began loading her bags into the trunk. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, a mundane, ordinary activity. Then she heard the voice behind her. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Whitaker turned slowly. A uniformed officer approached, his hand resting lightly on his service weapon, not drawn, but signaling authority and readiness. Michael Reardon, 37, had 9 years on the Coronado Heights Police Department. He was responding to a report of a suspicious person triggered by a vague complaint, a woman lingering near luxury vehicles. No crime had been alleged, no theft reported, simply a black woman standing near an expensive car. Reardon had made a snap judgment. She fit the description. Whitaker kept her hands visible, one holding her key fob. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, calm and deliberate. "I need you to step away from the vehicle and provide identification," he said. Whitaker immediately recognized what was happening. This was a Fourth Amendment seizure. She had been detained without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. She faced a choice: comply silently and challenge the stop later, or assert her rights immediately. She chose the latter. "Officer, I am loading my own car with my own purchases. I have the key fob in my hand. What specific criminal activity do you suspect me of?" Reardon stiffened. Most people complied quietly, few asked questions. "Ma'am, I'm investigating a suspicious person report. I need to see your ID," he said. "What specific suspicious behavior was reported?" she asked. "Loading shopping bags into a car is normal. Someone called it in, but called it in as what? What crime did they think was occurring?" Reardon's hand tightened on his holster. "You need to cooperate." "I am cooperating," she said. "I am simply asking you to articulate the legal basis for this detention. That is not obstruction. It is my constitutional right." Shoppers had begun noticing. One woman, standing about 20 feet away, began recording with her phone. The scene was escalating. "I'm not asking again. Step away and provide identification," Reardon said. Whitaker made a deliberate choice. She would comply under protest, document everything, and address it legally afterward. Arguing with police in a public setting was dangerous, especially for Black Americans. "Officer, I will comply, but I want to state clearly that this stop lacks reasonable suspicion and violates my Fourth Amendment rights," she said. She moved slowly, keeping her hands visible, and retrieved her wallet. Inside were multiple forms of identification: her driver's license, federal judiciary credentials, courthouse security clearance, and bar card. She handed them over sequentially, each verified, each confirming her identity and authority. Her identity was legitimate. Vehicle ownership was verifiable. No crime had been committed. Yet Reardon escalated further. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle." Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "On what legal basis?" "I have reasonable suspicion that there may be stolen merchandise in the vehicle." "Based on what specific facts?" she asked. There were none. The report was vague. His assumptions, influenced by bias, were legally insufficient. "I am asserting my constitutional rights," she said. "Refusing consent does not constitute reasonable suspicion. Arizona versus Johnson makes this clear." Reardon flushed. "Are you a lawyer?" "I am a federal judge," she said calmly, commanding attention. The parking lot fell silent. People stopped, watching. "United States District Court, 21 years on the bench. You have violated clearly established constitutional law," she said. Reardon hesitated. He demanded proof. Whitaker produced her federal credentials. He examined them, authority draining from his posture. A bystander called out, "I've got all of this on video." Reardon made a catastrophic choice. He commanded her to place her hands behind her back. "You are under arrest for interfering with an investigation." Judge Whitaker complied calmly. The cuffs clicked. Shoppers whispered in disbelief. She was being arrested for loading groceries into her own car. Naomi Whitaker's life had always been defined by discipline, resilience, and an unyielding sense of justice. Born in 1971 in Oakland, California, she was the eldest of 3 children in a family that valued education, hard work, and civic responsibility. Her father, Charles Whitaker, was a civil engineer and a decorated veteran, and her mother, Lorraine, was a high school history teacher, deeply committed to her students and the local community. From an early age, Naomi was immersed in an environment where respect for the law, ethical behavior, and intellectual curiosity were not optional. They were fundamental expectations. And she grew up in a modest neighborhood, one that had its challenges. Crime was a constant presence, and racial inequality was visible in schools, housing, and employment. Even as a child, Naomi noticed disparities in how people were treated, how authority figures interacted with her community, and how some voices went unheard. She often accompanied her mother to community meetings and civic events, absorbing lessons on advocacy, fairness, and standing up for what was right. At age 10, she witnessed her first high-profile legal case on television, the Rodney King trial and the subsequent Los Angeles riots. Although she did not understand the legal intricacies at that age, she understood the anger, the fear, and the deep sense of injustice that racial bias could provoke. That experience left a lasting impression on her, planting the seed for a lifelong commitment to civil rights and fairness. Naomi excelled in school. She was a top student, not because she sought praise, but because she had internalized a standard of excellence. Teachers often noted her analytical mind, her ability to see both sides of a complex problem, and her natural skill at persuasion and debate. In high school, she joined the debate team and mock trial programs, quickly earning recognition at statewide competitions. Her passion for law was evident even then, fueled by a deep understanding of how justice, or the lack of it, could shape lives. After graduating as valedictorian from her high school, Naomi was accepted into Stanford University on a full scholarship. At Stanford, she majored in political science with a minor in philosophy, studying the foundations of law, ethics, and governance. She thrived in the intellectual rigor of the university, forging friendships with professors who challenged her thinking and encouraged her to explore the intersection of law and social justice. She spent hours in the library, poring over legal treatises and landmark Supreme Court opinions, laying the groundwork for the career she would eventually pursue. Her undergraduate years were marked not just by academic achievement, but also by activism. She volunteered with organizations advocating for voting rights, prisoner rehabilitation, and anti-discrimination policies. She interned with legal aid clinics, assisting attorneys who represented low-income clients facing systemic barriers. Each experience reinforced her understanding of the law as a tool to protect the vulnerable and hold powerful institutions accountable. After Stanford, Naomi enrolled at Harvard Law School, where she continued to distinguish herself. She excelled in courses on constitutional law, civil rights, and criminal procedure, earning top marks and the respect of professors and peers alike. She clerked for federal appellate judges during the summers, gaining first-hand insight into judicial reasoning and the inner workings of the court system. Her mentors recognized her intellect, her discipline, and her moral compass, often predicting that she would eventually serve on the federal bench. Upon graduating magna cum laude from Harvard, Naomi returned to California to begin her legal career. She joined a prestigious law firm in San Francisco, focusing on civil rights litigation and constitutional law. Her work included challenging discriminatory practices by law enforcement agencies, advocating for marginalized communities, and participating in high-profile class action suits. She quickly built a reputation as a meticulous attorney who left no stone unturned and who fought tirelessly for her clients' rights. By her early 30s, Naomi's record of advocacy and legal scholarship caught the attention of federal appointments committees. In 2004, at the age of 33, she was nominated by the President of the United States to serve as a United States District Judge in the Western District of California. The confirmation process was rigorous, involving hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee, in-depth scrutiny of her legal opinions, writings, and professional conduct, and countless questions about her philosophy, ethics, and approach to the law. She was confirmed unanimously, a testament to her credibility, competence, and reputation for fairness. Over the next 2 decades, Judge Whitaker presided over some of the most challenging cases in the district. She handled high-stakes criminal cases involving organized crime, complex civil rights litigation against government entities, and sensitive matters involving police misconduct. Her rulings were grounded in law, precedent, and a commitment to equity. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, and colleagues alike respected her impartiality, her attention to detail, and her unwavering dedication to justice. She authored opinions that were cited in courts across 3 states and became a mentor to younger judges and attorneys committed to civil rights and constitutional law. Yet, despite her accomplishments, Naomi remained grounded. She lived modestly, maintaining connections to her community, mentoring young lawyers, and engaging in outreach programs aimed at educating the public about their legal rights. She understood that her position of authority came with responsibility not only to uphold the law, but also to ensure that justice was accessible, fair, and equitable. Her life, however, was not without personal challenges. Balancing the demands of the federal bench with family responsibilities, community involvement, and personal well-being required careful planning and resilience. She learned early that patience, preparation, and moral courage were essential, not only in the courtroom, but in every interaction with the world. It was this combination of experience, insight, and integrity that made Naomi Whitaker uniquely qualified to navigate the ordeal she faced that Saturday afternoon. She had spent decades understanding the nuances of constitutional law, the standards of police conduct, and the ways in which systemic bias could manifest. Yet, despite her expertise, nothing could have fully prepared her for the sudden personal confrontation with an officer who had no understanding of her authority or her rights. This background, her upbringing, education, career, and dedication formed the foundation of her resilience. It also explains why she handled the parking lot confrontation with such remarkable composure. Naomi Whitaker was not merely reacting. She was operating from decades of experience, legal knowledge, and a deeply ingrained sense of justice. As the reader begins to understand her background, it becomes clear that the events in the parking lot were not just an isolated incident. They were a collision of systemic bias, societal assumptions, and the profound consequences that arise when authority is exercised without accountability. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge not only an officer's judgment, but also the principles of law, civil rights, and personal courage that Naomi Whitaker embodied throughout her life. Michael Reardon was 37 years old on that Saturday afternoon, standing in the Coronado Heights Mall parking lot, facing a woman who would soon change the course of his career and life. To understand the complexity of the confrontation, it is essential to understand him, not to excuse his actions, but to see how his decisions were influenced by experience, training, and perception. Michael was born in 1987 in a small town in Riverside County, California. His father, a construction foreman, and his mother, a medical office administrator, instilled in him the values of discipline, order, and respect for authority. From a young age, Michael was drawn to structured environments and rules. School was less about intellectual curiosity and more about demonstrating competence and following instructions. He thrived in competitive sports, particularly football and baseball, where hierarchy and teamwork mirrored the environments he admired. After high school, Michael enrolled in a local community college, intending to pursue criminal justice. Early on, he was fascinated by law enforcement, imagining himself as a protector of communities, a figure who could intervene decisively when wrongdoing occurred. He absorbed police dramas, procedural books, and biographies of legendary officers. Reality, however, would be far more complicated than the stories that inspired him. Reardon joined the Coronado Heights Police Academy at age 22. He excelled in physical training, defensive tactics, and firearms qualifications. Academically, he was competent, but not exceptional. His instructors noted that he had an unwavering belief in the importance of rules and procedure, sometimes at the expense of flexibility or critical thinking. By graduation, he was eager, ambitious, and determined to make a mark. Early assignments as a patrol officer exposed him to the realities of policing, domestic disputes, traffic enforcement, narcotics investigations, and routine community calls. He encountered danger, fear, and moral ambiguity. Some calls left him frustrated, others reinforced his sense of justice. Yet over time, patterns began to emerge, particularly the disproportionate number of stops involving minority communities. Reardon, like many officers, internalized these patterns without fully interrogating their origins. He saw them as routine, procedural, or necessary for safety. By the time he reached his 8th year on the force, Michael had developed a reputation as reliable, by the book, and slightly rigid. He rarely challenged supervisors, rarely questioned procedures, and adhered closely to his training. He had received commendations for initiative and professionalism, but he also had complaints on file. Minor ones, mostly for tone, perceived impatience, or disagreements during traffic stops. None had escalated to formal disciplinary action, but they were part of his cumulative record. Michael had always believed in the principle that police authority should be asserted decisively, especially in situations that appeared ambiguous or potentially risky. This mindset, combined with training that emphasized proactive policing, made him prone to acting first and justifying later. Suspicious person calls were routine. They often involved vague descriptions, incomplete information, or subjective perceptions. Michael had learned to trust his instincts, his experience, and his interpretation of behavior. The day he encountered Naomi Whitaker, he was responding to exactly this type of call. A vague report of a suspicious person near high-value vehicles. The call included minimal description, just a black female of medium build near a dark-colored luxury car. No allegations of theft, no report of criminal behavior, nothing concrete. But in Reardon's mindset, ambiguity demanded caution and assertive intervention. Reardon approached the scene with a mixture of confidence and procedural certainty. His training emphasized control, hands on his holster, clear verbal commands, and the projection of authority. Most civilians complied without question. Most calls were mundane. Yet a small subset of stops revealed the fault lines in his approach. Hesitation, escalation, or failure to accurately assess the situation could trigger public scrutiny, internal review, or worse, he was unaware that the woman in front of him had spent 21 years on the federal bench adjudicating cases involving police misconduct, civil rights violations, and systemic bias. He saw a black woman near a luxury vehicle and unconsciously allowed assumptions to guide his actions. Reardon's upbringing, training, and career had created a lens through which he interpreted the world.